Confused about how to plan for your retirement? Sean Maloney is here to help. Sean has created the Retire Happy framework that considers more than just how much you should save. Getting information and tools to preserve your financial future is minutes away. Welcome to the Priority of Retirement with your host, Sean Maloney.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Priority of Retirement, where we dive into all aspects and the many facets of retirement planning, unpacking those strategies, ideas, insights for that thoughtful and rewarding journey into retirement. Brian Herriot helps mid-career consultants find financial freedom and live their best lives. He offers a new and different take on wealth building, lifestyle design, and retirement, building customized comprehensive wealth plans for his clients in just a week. Brian is working toward a world where everyone has the time and support to define what success means to them and focused on building character over building resumes. So Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sean. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So tell me, we had a brief intro there, but tell us a little bit of background about yourself before we dive in and get listeners get to know you a little bit.
Yes, I'm an independent financial advisor for entrepreneurs, and my company is Herriot Financial. But I do approach things a little bit differently. I was a financial freedom guy for so long, but I've actually shifted my thinking on that a little bit. And I can kind of give you a quick history to kind of evolve on how I came about that, if that sounds good.
Perfect. Yeah, go for it, brother.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm in my 40s. I came out of school, went to University of Wisconsin, got my engineering and business degrees and did what you're supposed to do and got a good job at a good consulting firm. Saved early, even started a company, all of those good things. But then when I hit 40, actually it was about 41 specifically, it was 2020, and a lot of bad things happened, not just COVID, but some other things that happened for me as well. A job demotion. I'd made a financial mistake. That software startup was kind of going nowhere.
Gotcha. And
I had this, moment that probably some of us have in the middle of our lives where we start to think about why we're doing the things that we're doing. And it was that was 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I had this epiphany that was actually based on a question that my wife asked me, which resulted, and I can get into that, but about 4 years ago, we made the decision to buy our kind of forever cabin on a lake in northern Wisconsin, where we're originally from. 3 years ago, we started spending our summers there. And 2 years ago, I spent my first summer there where I didn't work. And last year, I did the same and actually got to witness my son water skiing, which water skiing is a huge thing in our family.
Sure.
I've kind of just really shifted how I think about these things. And now I, speak and write, and prepare wealth plans for my clients as
Sure.
part of this new work that I do. But what did my wife ask me? Basically, like I said, I was a financial freedom person. I started with, 401ks from the time I was 20, because I had a father, fortunately, who taught me to do that.
Right.
I transitioned into the financial independence space and did all of that kind of stuff. I tried to hit it out of the park and start a unicorn, but none of that I was almost there basically in 2020 until the market tanked that February and March. So, and in that moment, I kind of redid all my calculations and everything was messed up. And it was going to be another 15 or 20 years until I could retire. And we had been like pushing hard to do this early. And I told my wife, and I didn't know how she was going to react. But basically her question to me was, so what would you do if you retired? And I said, what? I was like, well,
I get that answer a lot when you ask that question.
Yeah, exactly. And so it just like all of a sudden I had to quickly answer something. And so I said, well, probably more of some of the same. I like doing the independent consulting, but maybe less of it. And so she's like, so you're not going to retire?
Right.
She's kind of a, get to the point kind of person.
Right. There you go.
And I'm like, well, I guess not. She's like, well, I think you need to figure that out, before you do this early retirement thing. And so I took a couple weeks or longer And actually what I realized is that kind of in that moment, I realized I don't want to stop working. Like there's so many things about work that I do love.
Yeah.
You know, if I could just throw away all the politics and the administrative stuff and all the dumb stuff and keep like the social connections and the the problem solving and all those sorts of things, I'd actually like to do it forever. I mean, if I
Sure.
could. And what I want to do is I just want to have a time where I can enjoy my summers. That happened to be my dream. So really what I was discovering is that I did not want absolute financial freedom. I actually wanted what I now call meaningful freedom, which is
Yeah.
more about the choice, the autonomy and the choice to work when I want, with whom I want, you
Right.
know, all of those sorts of things. And it wasn't going to be 15 to 20 years for me to do that. It was going to be, I could do that in 3 years. So we could save up enough so that I could work for 9 months, take 3 months off, rely some on, the savings we've acquired,
Right.
but also a lot on the continued money that I would be making. And so I came across this different way of looking at financial freedom. And I think it's let me like explain it this way. Have you ever heard I think it's the maxim, money buys freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's one. I actually think that's backwards. Another one is, I mean, we all want financial freedom, but what do we want financial freedom for?
Right.
Like you said, it's a tool. I listened to one of your previous
Yeah.
episodes. It's a tool
Exactly.
for the freedom of, spending time with the people you want to spend, all those sorts of things. So really what I believe now is that we should pursue this time freedom first,
Hmm.
and then the financial freedom will actually follow. And so that's this mindset shift that I've really kind of, thought a ton about now. And that's how I work with clients, teach clients. Because guys, I think instead of waiting 20 years to live the way you want to live, you can create a life you love in 3 years.
Yeah, no, I love that. Right. I mean, like, before we came on, we were chatting a little bit and I mean, hey, look, we work hard our whole life. We're not working hard to just sit around or do whatever. And now everybody's definition of retirement is different, right? Everybody's definition of freedom or time freedom or whatever is probably different. It's depending on what you want to do, but find your purpose, find what makes you happy, and like you alluded to earlier, the tools to do that are great, right? But talk a little bit, and I read something in your information about the lifestyle freedom equation. What exactly is that?
Yeah. What the way, so I start with what I consider the financial freedom equation, or which is basically the 4% rule, which means, you've got your lifestyle expenses that you need to cover, and that needs to equal, the investment income that you can get off, or 4% uh of your investments that you've built. And the reason that it takes so long to retire is because it takes so long to build that mountain of savings up to the point where 4% of that is what you can live off of. So the lifestyle freedom equation, or the time freedom formula, or whatever you want to call it, adds that third element, which is this flexible income. So if you have your lifestyle expenses equaling your investment income plus your flexible income, oh my gosh, that equation, you're adding another entire element to that, which allows a much smaller investment income number. And now, based on how and one that can flex based on how you flex the flexible income. So if you can add that partial income, partial year income,
Yep.
hobby income,
Yep.
spousal income, like all these other components that you add to that equation, then you can get there a lot faster.
That makes sense. Makes sense. And through the years, just working with so many different kind of people and their mindsets and different personalities, and then all the different influences that people have had, in their mindset when it comes to thinking about retirement or financial freedom or lifestyle freedom, those kind of things. Talk a little bit about that, right? Where people's personalities, what the impact that has on that freedom equation.
Yeah. And so this is another thing that I like about the time freedom formula is that um, people, and this was new to me. So I was raised a saver. I was raised, the thing you're supposed to do, right?
Right,
Like
right.
if you treat money right, you're great. I have a son who is not like that. And it has nothing to do with the lessons I'm trying to impart. But let me give you an example. We tried the whole 3 jar method, when your kid's small and you put
Right.
a third, right? You get your
Yeah.
money from grandma and grandpa and you put a third in spending, a third in savings, and a third in charity.
Yeah.
he is a master negotiator, let me start with. And he decided that I mean, and he was, he would not let up, that he would spend it all despite, but that he could then just go make more. He was gonna go figure out how to wash cars and sell lemonade, and now he refs soccer games and makes way more than I ever made in my first job. And it made me realize that, like, I just think people are wired with different ways of looking at money. So I break it down into kind of three types of people that I've observed in working with people. You've got your money managers, which are the people like me. You save up your money, you want to investment manage it and make it good.
Yep.
These are the people that financial advisors love, of course. But then you've also got these money maker people, and that's like my son, or it's the entrepreneurial types, a lot of the people that I work with, and they are thinking in terms of, and actually I think it's the biggest, most incredible form of financial freedom. If someone has the ability to just go make some money.
Right.
That's pretty incredible. And I some people can do that.
Yeah.
You're a master salesman, whatever it happens to be. Um, and then you've got these people that I never thought existed, but actually do. And I call them the money minimizers. They don't like to talk about money. They don't want to deal with money. Even if they get an inheritance, they don't really want it because they didn't have anything to do with it. Um, and each of those three personalities fit nicely in the time freedom formula. So if you're a money manager, you're going to build up that savings mountain and you're going to live off that investment income. If you're a maker, you're going to have this flexible income that maybe you might do forever. But if you craft your job perfectly, so what? You can do it forever. And if you have such low, lifestyle expense needs,
Right.
you just don't want to deal with too much money. Well, actually, you don't have that much you're going to need to live off of either. That's kind of the purest fire type person. And so I feel that each of those money personalities, obviously it's different, but I actually think they all have strengths, and the different strengths align with the part of the formula that will still make it work for people. And I think as I explain this to people, almost feel like a breath of relief because they're like, oh, I've never been a good saver.
Right.
I don't have enough money, but boy, I'd love to go out and sell that next deal. Well, that it will work. It will work in your equation,
Right.
if you lean into your strength.
Yep. It's so easy to get caught into, I mean, the different mindsets and mind traps, if you will, but like you said earlier, about the way we're taught or what the world presents to us is this is the way you're supposed to do things, right? And it's kind of hard to get out
Yeah.
of that. And then we get into jobs and you kind of get into that grind, and you just before you know it, you look up and time is gone, right? So I know you think you have some ideas on the ways people can kind of escape that corporate grind and kind of really start living on their own terms. What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of isolate my thinking here to the kind of the entrepreneur. So, um, I believe everyone should be an entrepreneur. Not everyone can be because of
Sure.
the way we're raised. But I think, at least for me, I've had like an evolution on that, on what it means to be an entrepreneur. Because I think first you think an entrepreneur is like that person who runs the neighborhood business. And those people work their butts off and they don't make that much money, running that restaurant downtown.
Right.
But that's what I thought being an entrepreneur was. And then I moved to California, and then I looked down in Silicon Valley, and what it means to be an entrepreneur is to start the next Uber. And I'll tell you, I'm an ambitious person, but I don't think I could do that.
Right.
I don't know. I certainly wouldn't have time freedom if I did it, right?
Sure.
And then I listened to this podcast back in 2017 where they were talking about someone trying, getting VC funding and trying to reach unicorn status, and they didn't make it. They quote unquote failed, and they failed to what they called a lifestyle business. And I thought, lifestyle business, that's not a failure. That's an incredible thing, like a
Right.
business that you can operate that works exactly how you want it to work. It works around your lifestyle. It makes you money when you want it to. You can kind of pause when you want. Like, this is brilliant. And so I believe that the life of a lifestyle entrepreneur is the one that perfectly aligns with something like this. So that's what, and then you can take, because you're 100% in control of how you spend your time and set your schedules, you can do crazy things, which I don't think are crazy, but people think are crazy when I mention it, in like establishing what I call seasonal schedules. So this is like, why is only a teacher off in the summer? Or why is it that just a CPA has the busy time of year and then the low time of year? Couldn't we, if we are like in a small service business, couldn't we align our work in such a way that we could all have our summers off? Or that we, and until you really actually start to think creatively about it, you probably think, no, not really. But then I think it's because we think, the work in our teams define our time. But no, like if we are like in an emergency, if you had an emergency and you had to go help your ailing mother for 3 months, you'd make it work.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, apply that type of thinking to every year. And
Yeah.
so I have these two methods that I use, which is called shifting and chunking the work, and delegating and elevating your team.
Okay.
And so if you can set your work up in these like little intensives, then you can just not put any of that work in the summer. So when I work with people, I work with them intensely for a week. I ramp up a bunch of them in the off season, outside of the summer season, and then I don't do any in the summer. So that I don't have to work in the summer. And then I also have this incredible assistant who's um, continuing to take on more and more responsibility of stuff that then I don't have to do. And
Right.
so, like,
Right.
if I combine those things, I can live a perfectly seasonal schedule and actually have summers off and make, I wish teachers made a whole lot more, but make a whole lot more than a teacher might.
Right.
Um, Teachers maybe don't have their summers off because to make ends meet, they have to work second jobs, unfortunately.
True.
But yeah, and I just yeah. So anyway, that's what I think about in terms of that, and how how to kind of take back control of
Yeah.
how your year goes.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's that's amazing, right? I mean, it's thinking outside the box for sure because, we're all grew up or just knew that this is like you said the way you're supposed to do things, right?
Right.
But you made a good point, right? Like when if you have an emergency happen, like you said, oh, take care of your mom stuff, and you just make it happen, right?
Mhm.
But if you make these other things a priority, you can make it happen as well. It's just thinking outside the box. Some people have a hard time thinking outside the box, though.
I've been trying to do this for a long time. I actually did I became a teacher for a little bit to see how it would work, but again, I made so little money I couldn't take off. I
Right.
got my real estate broker license because I'm like, oh, I can totally control my time, but that didn't work either because you're always on the phone. It was like the opposite of what I planned for. And then
Right.
finally, I just willed it into being, I'm like, okay, I do this consulting. I am just not going to take work over the summer. And I mean, people have to be incredibly good at their work in order to do something like this. And I think,
Sure.
the people that want to be able to do this usually are incredible at their work. And so they can then, navigate the work to do this. I think, yeah, that was, I always, you mentioned the purpose earlier.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that too. And so what I did is I picked up and I went to New Orleans and I taught high school through Teach for America when I was 25. And I thought that was purposeful. I wanted, but I couldn't do it any more than 1 year because I didn't make enough money.
Sure.
And that was it took me a while to realize that you can't just go from like working to purpose-filled work. I think you need to get be able to get control of your time and have the time and the financial confidence to be able to do the purpose-filled work.
Sure.
And so I think that that's an interim step. So you work, you kind of get the, in other words, I don't want people to be like, I don't want people to feel bad who are just trying to make ends meet and getting things done that they can't do purpose-filled work. Like, of course they can't. Like, they need to build the time in first to be able to do the purpose-filled work.
Right.
And so I don't know, it's just a slight variation on kind of how that works, like with the middle step there.
Yeah. No, it kind of makes sense. It makes sense. So I was reading something about this business planning framework. Was it the 0, 1, 10 times planning framework?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's basically exponential growth. So if I say you pursue your time freedom first and you
Hmm.
do seasonal schedules, the financial freedom will follow. Well, we can't forget the second part. So, um, how am I supposed to take time off work and then make more money? Right. And so again, it's it's the thinking outside of the box piece. Um, Let me tell a quick story.
Yeah.
I think if you're doing what you love and it's extremely valuable, you can do fewer things and make more money. So I, my wife and I hate yard sales because we're actually both pretty introverted people. And this is a story about my son again, because we decided to do, and this is back when he was 7 years old. And we set up everything and we were like, okay, we had a full basement of junk and we put it all out and we're like, we're gonna sell it and we're gonna do $500. That's our goal. And,
Right.
you know, our son, he had used up all his money in his 3 jars. And so he was thinking of ways to make more, even at 7 years old. And he said, what if your goal is 500, if I can help out, could I make anything over the 500? So if you sell 700, could I make the 200? And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. And but anyway, he's out there helping us and whatnot. And so it's middle of the day. I think my wife was inside and I, he's 7 and he's fine, but I couldn't find him and he wasn't inside and I was looking all over for him. And I was a little nervous I was going to get in huge trouble with my wife. And so I'm like running up into the steps of the front of our house and I hear this our key fob go off, this beep beep.
Yeah.
And we don't have a garage, and so we had moved it over in front of the neighbors. And I look over and our son is over there with our key fob. He had gone inside and grabbed it. And there's some other lady over there. And he's like showing her the car, like turning the lights on, not turning it on, thank goodness.
Right.
Well, he had heard my wife and I mentioned that we were going to be selling our car in a couple of months.
Right.
And he took matters into his own hands. And he was showing this woman the car. And he brought her over to me like I was at the car dealership and I was his manager to close the deal. And she's like, yeah, my daughter's looking for it. So she took it out for a test drive. I quoted her some price. I hadn't done any research on it yet. So I like ran upstairs and quickly looked at, I was like $2,000 too low.
Right.
So she came back. I'm like, sorry, it's 2,000 more. And she's like, that's okay. I just looked it up too. And she bought it and left and she
That's
drove away
crazy.
with our car. So our son, we did sell like $700 or whatever, but he sold a $7,000 car that day. And I'm like, what the heck was going on here? And he loves to chat and he loves cars. He had his Matchbox cars. He learned to read off this Matchbox cars, like all this kind of stuff. So my
Yeah.
point of the story is if you look at like, we hated the garage sale. We didn't want anything to do with it. We had no value in it. Like there was nothing of high value. It was blah. He loves to sell and he saw the highest priced item in the whole thing. And he made 10 times as much money as we did that day. And so I call this thing finding your one thing.
Yeah.
And so it's usually around a combination of, what you love, what's so high value, and what will still maintain your time freedom. And if you can find that thing for him, for example, he'll become a salesman, I'm sure someday. And I think the more expensive thing if he sold like high performance sports cars or something like that, he would be
Right.
loving it and he would make a mint.
Right.
And that's all he could do. He could probably take off for the summer, come back and keep selling, you know. But there's other ways to do it too. I think like if you kind of take an idea and you write a book about it and you become a great speaker at it and like there's just like you have to look outside. You can't
Yeah.
do all the stuff you're doing 10% better. You need to find the one thing you probably aren't doing and do that. Like find that relationship to that person that you have from college who's now, works at the Wall Street Journal and you can write for the Wall Street Journal because you know that person and that's going to change your business 10 times.
Right.
So anyway, that's what I think. And the only way you can do that and focus on that is if you have the time to actually sit back and come out of the grind and think about it. So when you're on your summers off, you're not just water skiing all day. Like us as business owners, we're always thinking about our businesses. So
Sure.
you have time to think about kind of those big, crazy ideas and try them out.
Yeah.
And
No, I love it.
that's how you find your financial freedom after your time freedom, I think.
No, that's great. I love that. And I heard you talking about mini breaks or sabbaticals, to kind of giving someone a jump start toward that retirement. And I've talked to several people that have done that, and some other people that in the industry that kind of give you that mini feel, that jump feel toward into retirement. So tell us your perspective on that, or anything, stories or anything you have around that.
The first 2023 was that first summer when I didn't have to work. And so we took advantage of it. So we spent a month in Portugal, and it was incredible because, we lined it up. So half the time other friends met us there, and we didn't have to rush around. And when we went home, we came home, they asked us how long we were in town or in this country, and we said 4 weeks. And it's like, what did you do that whole time? It's kind of funny, as if, there wasn't enough to do. And
Right.
then I spent the 2 months at the lake, and I loved that experience for two reasons. One was that because we didn't have to rush, it seemed that much longer. But then the second reason was, I was like, good thing I didn't pursue absolute financial freedom, because at the end of the summer, I'm like, all right, I'm kind of ready to go back to work. And I'm like, if I had waited 20 years to figure that out, oh my God,
Right.
I would have been like, and so that was a huge insight for me that only came because of that break. And we had financial resources for me to take time off even longer, but I couldn't wait any longer. I had to
Yeah.
get back.
Yeah.
And so that's really why I felt was, why that was so important, and why anything you do, I think you need to test it out first to see how
Sure.
you're going to do it. Like, I've heard
Yeah.
stories about the person that like sells everything and buys a sailboat to sail around the world, and they get out on the ocean and they're puking because they can't handle the water, and they're like, I made a huge mistake,
Right. Yeah. 100%. Well, yeah, it goes back to that question, when you get asked what you want to do in retirement, the question, right?
Yep.
Well, figure it out ahead of time. And you may not figure it out the first time. Sometimes you try stuff, right? It's, try before you
Yes.
buy kind of scenario, right? You try
I
different,
think I agree with you 100%.
see what works, see what sticks, what makes you happy. And if you're able to do that, I think it's a fantastic idea. Even and you can make it happen, right? I mean, even if you're working and you're saying, hey, I can't take all that well, maybe you bank up a little bit of your, vacation. You take a longer vacation, and you just get in that mindset of, hey, okay, I'm not working right now. And don't, and just get in that retirement mindset. Say you wake up that next morning and say, okay, I'm retired. What's my day going to look like? Right. What am I doing?
I love that. And when I describe seasonal schedules, people usually go like, I don't know if I can do that right away. And I think the quickest way to start is to do, I call it first Friday of the month off. Like, just take every first Friday of the month off. Like, that's 96 hours of time off that you wouldn't have otherwise. And then the second one is what you said, which is take your Christmas break, which is two weeks. Nobody's working then anyway, and take
Right.
an extra week at the beginning and an extra week at the end, and you've got a month off. Like, that's huge. That's a huge. I think 4 weeks is far superior to 2 weeks off. You can start to decompress, and if you do first Fridays and a full month off, that's like 250 some hours, which is halfway to 3 months off, which is my ideal. But you can get there. You really can.
You get a taste for it, and there's that whole cycle. A lot of people that get into retirement goes, that people that don't do that or don't have an idea, or maybe they have an idea and they just jump off, and you get into that first year of retirement, and it's kind of that honeymoon phase, but then the honeymoon phase wears off a little bit, right? And you get tired of whatever thing you had in your head that you thought you were going to spend all your time on. And then it leads to those other phases that we hear all too often about, is people are going to go, now what? And they get a little bit depressed because they don't know what they're doing with their time, because they don't have it figured out. A huge
Yep.
proponent of trying to map that out, or figure that out, I should say, ahead of time, so you can kind of avoid that second phase downturn.
That's really smart. That's really smart. And yeah, and my only difference is bring it even way earlier in
Yeah,
life. And like do that in 3 years from now if
yeah.
you can.
There you go. Man, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I love your perspectives. I love the aspect of, the time freedoms and all that. And guys, listeners out there, you'll see his information in the show notes and all that about Brian and his efforts. Again, I appreciate you coming on. And just for our legal side of the houses here and all that, I got to mention that, guests in our podcast are in no way are affiliated or endorse us, but they are a great guest, and we enjoy having them on. So until next time, here's to aligning your future. I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed day. Brian, thanks again for having you on our show, man. Appreciate it. Have a great day, bud.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for listening to The Priority of Retirement with Sean Maloney. If you enjoyed the show, Check out our reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more free resources to help with your retirement journey, go to retirewisepro.com or check the link in the show notes. You can also download a free copy of Sean's book, The Priority of Retirement, or reach out to discuss working with him directly at retirewisepro.com. Thanks for listening.
Insurance products offered through the insurance business RetireWise LLC. RetireWise LLC is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by RetireWise LLC are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the insuring carrier. This podcast intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. RetireWise LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by RetireWise LLC. Guests of the Priority of Retirement are not affiliated with, nor do they endorse Sean Maloney or RetireWise LLC.